Well, hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. Well, a question I see that pops up on forums from time to time is this question of landlocked property. And the question really is centered around, should I look or should I consider purchasing landlocked property? So I want to dive into that on this video, but first we need to obviously define what landlocked property is. So when we're talking about property, the term landlocked has nothing to do with bodies of water, as you would learn in geography. Landlocked simply means that a parcel of land has no access around it to a public road or a public right-of-way. So that type of parcel can make things a little tricky when it comes to access. So you may be wondering, if you're not familiar with landlocked land, well, how does that happen? How does a piece of land become landlocked? And usually it happens when there's a larger parcel of land that is subdivided and easement or access has been simply overlooked, or it has been intentional. So let's use an example of, let's say Grandpa has 100-acre land, and before he croaks, he wants to give parcels to 5 of his grandkids. So he just sits down and kind of draws out, well, I want so-and-so to have this, so-and-so to have that, and so-and-so to have that. And he puts it all together with his will or estate plan, but didn't necessarily hire the proper guys to lay that out. Well, it could be the 5th parcel because of how all those others were cut up, or the 4th parcel, or the 2nd parcel, or whatever, may be completely surrounded by all of those parcels and there not be any logical road. Or he may think, well, yeah, we always use the old logging road. That's how you should get to that. But if it's not clearly defined, then that land could become landlocked. Another example is one that I'm familiar with. My business partner, he lives in a suburban setting. And in his neighborhood, the developer, when he built the neighborhood, he wanted to have a park, a 2-acre park in the central portion of the neighborhood. So all the houses would be like a donut around it. Actually, it's more like a rectangle. So that 2 acres was intentionally landlocked. There was no access easement there. All the house property, all the way around it, all the lots butted right up against one another. So the backyards of all those houses poured into the park. So he intentionally made that 2 acres landlocked. So with landlocked land, the landowner, the property owner of the landlocked land, has no legal access to that property. Now there may be roads, there may be paths, there may be trails, but there's no legal access granted to that piece of property. So let's use an example of our property here, our 100 acres in West Virginia. So I don't know if you can see over my shoulder here, but the white road, gravel road, that's the county road, and it goes up this way at the front edge of my property. The road that you see with 2 tracks is the beginning of my driveway. So county road, driveway. Now 18 years ago, when we finished building the house and I wanted to close out my construction loan, I wanted to put the mortgage on a secondary market so I could have a fixed rate, you know, the typical stuff. Well, banks obviously don't like to play with a house and 100 acres. So what they required me to do was to deed off the front 10 acres of the property, and with the house and the other improvements, and the back 90 acres were on a separate deed. So you can see here as we look around, so everything you see here up to this mountaintop back a certain ways, and then hang on, we're going to spin around real quick. Same thing here, everything that comes around the county road and up behind the house and to the top there, up to an arbitrary point, and then just a straight line that connects one ridge down through the valley to the other. So that's the 10-acre slice that we have. But when I did that, I purposely developed the easement, or defined the easement here. When you go from the, you turn, there's a split. It's tough to do backwards. So there's a split, you come up the driveway to the house, or you go up to the barn and the workshop. So on my deed, it shows an easement access that goes all the way back to that deed line, that property line where the 10 acres stops. And the whole reason of doing that, if the thought behind it was, A, I don't want to create landlocked property, but B, if I would ever decide as I got older and the boys left and it was just Kelly and I, and we wanted to sell, we wanted to downsize, we wanted to go from that house to something smaller but still wanted to stay on the property, then we could sell the front 10 acres off, move back to the back of the property and maybe build something smaller and still have access. The road there'd be an easement that's already defined that goes right up the middle of the valley and right onto the 90 acres. Or the flip side, if I decided, hey, I can't do this, maybe I'm old, maybe I'm infirm, and it's all I can do to take care of the 10 acres, then I can sell off the 90 and already have that easement in place. So why should someone even consider looking at landlocked property and going through all that hassle? Well, there's a couple reasons. Number one, you could get a really good price per acre. Because it's landlocked, they know there's going to be issues, that price per acre could come down considerably. Number two, it could be in a location that you really want to be in, that, hey, everything around here is taken up or is too high. That landlocked piece is in the neighborhood that I want to be in, the valley I want to be in, or the watershed, whatever it is. It may be that location issue that's jumping out. And three, they could have some incredible extra assets, incredible value. For example, timber. You may find, because somebody parceled up a farm a certain way, this piece of land that was left unattended has some great timber, so it has additional value. So not only do you get the acreage at a low price, but maybe there's timber value as well. So it's worth looking into. But of course the question is, well, if it's landlocked, isn't it worthless except to the people that have adjacent property? How does it have any value for somebody on the outside looking in? Well, really, all that land needs is an easement. It's that simple. But sometimes getting an easement isn't as simple as it sounds. So let's talk about that. So let's say in all your property search, you found a really nice piece of land, but it appears to be landlocked and it maybe has 4 neighbors surrounding it. So the first thing you can do when seeking out an easement is just get an agreed upon easement. This easement would just simply be, you've approached one of the neighbors, you've told them you're interested in this piece of property, but before you purchase it, you want to make sure you can acquire a legal easement to the land. And it may be, hey, there's this old logging road or this old road driveway that goes right up past your house, looks like it accesses land. Is there an opportunity where we could get an agreement where I could use that should I buy this property and decide to start my homestead or my farm? And that neighbor could be like, yeah, sure, I don't mind that. I'd like to have that road graveled anyway. We'll share the maintenance, we'll share the responsibility of it. So yeah, we can do that. It may go that smoothly. It may also require a little bit of coercion there. You may be like, well, here's what I'll do. I'll give you X amount of money for that easement right. I'll give you this. I'll take care of all the maintenance. I'll blah, 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 whatever. You can come to some sort of agreement with that landowner. And you may just want to think, well, it's, he's a nice guy, gal. I'm just going to do a handshake. We're going to do an agreement like that. While verbal handshakes are binding in some states to some degree, I would strongly recommend you get something in writing. So have that written down. Maybe get a lawyer involved just to help you parse those words out properly and get that filed with your deed, your local county, the courthouse, those type of things. You want to have that on file. That way, if there's ever an argument, ever a disagreement, ever a concern, then you've got that documentation on file. You guys probably can't hear it because of the wind and the mic, but about 100 yards that way, there's a big gobbler. He's just cutting a shine. He's getting all strutted up for dating season, I guess. He's been running his yap all afternoon. Anyway, so what if those 4 neighbors, what if those 4 property owners adjacent to this land, they all say, hey dude, go pound sand. We're not going to give you an easement. We're not going to give you any way to access this property. Are you dead in the water then? And the answer to that is no, you're not dead in the water. Your next option could be to seek an easement of necessity. If you're seriously considered pursuing an easement of necessity, the first thing, the number one priority I recommend is find a lawyer, find a good lawyer that has done these type of things before. You want somebody with that experience. Now, you may be able to do some of that homework up front, but really what you need is a lawyer that's going to do a title search. Because one of the key points of an easement of necessity is going back, doing a title search and looking to see, and let's use our example again, that did any of those 4 surrounding neighbors, did their parcel at one time, was it part of the parcel you're looking at buying? If that's the case, then there's a pretty good stand against that specific neighbor to say, well, wait a minute, at one time this is one big parcel, so either you or the previous owner did a lousy job parsing this out and didn't leave easement access. So that could be a pretty good foothold for that legal opportunity. So if your lawyer says, yeah, we've got a pretty good foothold with this because of this situation of the history of this land being parceled out, I think we've got a slam dunk win then. So in that situation, you don't necessarily have to go to court. You don't have to sue that neighbor. Again, you're not even the property owner at this point if you're using the same scenario. But that's when you can take an opportunity to reach out to the neighbor, probably via your lawyer would be the best situation, and just show, hey, here's what we've got. We've got all this in place. Troy's going to buy this land and he's going to pursue an easement through your property because of what we found in this title search. And we feel pretty confident we're going to get that. So that may encourage that neighbor to say, well, okay, let me go back to talk to him about what he was offering. Yeah, let's do X amount of dollars. Let's make sure we got these things in place. That way I don't have to worry about getting sued. So that would be great if that's the way it went. But, you know, some people are stubborn, some people are hateful. That may be a situation where that neighbor says, no, I'm going to fight this tooth and nail. Let's go to court. So if you think you're going to end up going to court in that situation, then you have to factor all that into this land purchase. Is this land really worth going to court over? The deal that you're getting per acre per se, is that going to be negated by all the legal fees? Because you're not going to, even if you win, you're not going to be able to get that guy to pay your legal fees. You're still going to have your lawyer's legal fees to cover. So make sure you investigate all that. Make sure you talk all that out with your lawyer before you go in that direction. Then of course the flip side of this, you know, the 900-pound gorilla in this entire scenario is, even if you win, even if the reluctant neighbor is forced to give you an easement, you now have created a next door neighbor that's most likely going to be your enemy. Probably not going to be on the Christmas card list anytime soon, right? So I think we all probably have stories of either something that we've been involved with, a friend or a family, where a neighbor has just gone crazy because of some sort of property dispute. In fact, comment below if you've got some good ones, things that you've encountered or know of where there's just been the crazy neighbor that makes property or easement access just an absolute nightmare. But another con could be the right to appeal. The neighbor could appeal. So this could get tied up for a while. If there's a decision in your favor, that neighbor has the right to appeal. So that could get tied up for years. And so it may be one of those things where you're trying to get your dream land to get started, but you may be tied up in a court battle for a very long time. So there are happy ending opportunities to these type of situations. It's not all doom and gloom. It doesn't all end up in litigation. I remember that park I was telling you about, my business partner's neighborhood at the beginning of the video. Well, it became his neighborhood because he bought that park. The developer decided, hey, I don't want to mess with putting a park in. I've changed my mind. All the lots are purchased. So I'm just going to actually put this 2-acre piece of land on the market knowing it's landlocked. So my business partner worked with that developer, negotiated with the realtor, and negotiated with one of the neighbors who had a logical spot for an easement to come in. The neighbor was like, fine, yeah, you pay me X, I'll give you an easement there. So now my business partner has a gorgeous house in the middle of this 2-acre area, nice trees, you know, really nice area because it looks like a park because it was a park. And all of his neighbors around him have like a 1/8 or less lot that their house sits on, and his house sits on a nice wooded 2-acre lot. And he actually got it cheaper than the per acre price that everybody else paid for the lot because it was landlocked. So it worked out great for him. So he has an incredible asset value and resale value in place should he decide to sell somewhere down the road. So pursuing landlocked property could turn out to be pretty lucrative. It could be a great situation for you, or you could lose your rear end on it totally. So it's something you definitely want to do your homework on. You definitely want to consider consulting a lawyer, and you definitely want to consider setting aside time and money for that opportunity to explore. Well, there's so many tentacles to this conversation, and as I was putting my notes together and doing the research on this, I thought, man, there's all kinds of ways this can go. And especially here in West Virginia, where you may see a piece of property, and just because it has a county road near it, or even a road that runs up through it, you may think, yeah, that's got access, there's no problem. But comment below if you think you'd like to see a video that we do where we talk about some of those hidden pitfalls of things that look like they have easements, they look like they have public access, but especially when it comes to uneven topography, rough terrain, that you may end up finding a piece of land has no access whatsoever, even though legally it has an easement. Comment below if you'd like to see something like that. All right, well, I appreciate everyone subscribe. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you like these type of videos, and comment below any feedback you have, and appreciate everybody watching. Take care.